Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of Rich T Racing, the final video of 2021, and here we are looking at our top 5 worst moments of the 2021 Club 100 season. If you want to check out the top 5 best moments, do be sure to check that video out. It has literally gone out today as well, but we're not worrying about the best moments of what's been a fantastic year. We're looking at the worst moments of what's been a fantastic year, because again, it was a brilliant year, but there were also a lot of errors in here and a lot of things that went wrong, and here we're gonna bemoan them, I think is the best way of putting it. So without any further ado, let's get into the list and start with, of course, number 5. The multiple penalties at the Clandau endurance race. Now, we'd come into Clandau, me, Tom and Jasper, on, we were hoping for a good result. We were hoping to try and take a victory as we had done the week before. Me and Tom Bayford, a decisive victory. And what actually happened was we put in our worst performance of the year, coming home like 7th or something, scoring 70 points in a very much a dropped round. What went wrong here, and most of it was my fault, the problem was that the cones had been brought in a lot closer than what would be normal, and I just kept hitting them. I couldn't stop hitting them. Now there's a little bit of consternation around that, because I thought I'd been given a black flag for running wide at the bottom right-hander when I'd been forced. I'd done it once and got a warning. I was like, okay, don't do that again. Then I think I got overtaken by, I think it was Andrew Mather of Double Dash Motorsport Media. And as I came around for the next lap, I'd been given a penalty, and I thought it was for that. And I was like, what the actual... Exactly. It was Jacob Harris down looking down there, and I thought he'd given me a penalty for that, and I was not happy, and my head just went. And then it turned out it was cones. The entire time it'd been cones. I'd never been given didn't get given a track limits warning. So that was just really annoying. And then I'd picked up enough warnings for 2 black flags, and then I picked up another one, and then Tom did a cone. He hit a cone and then got another black flag, and then Jasper was just miles off the pace. So in fact, the entire endurance for Landau really was just an absolute stinker, and very much worthy of being number 5 on this list. So that's number 5. Let's now have a look at number 4. Losing the Lid endurance victory in the final 5 minutes. There is no real way... There's nothing really we can say about this. It's just one of those moments in motorsport where you just have to say, look, that happened. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to take it on the chin. The race had gone... It was a very interesting race. The wettest conditions I can remember ever driving in. The start, I'd got beached in the bark right at the start and just about able to keep it going. Recovered brilliantly. Then found myself in the bark again just before my pit stop, but it was still okay, because it was such a chaotic race that we were still within touching distance of Brilio. And as time went on, it became apparent when Brilio switched drivers, they had a really bad pit stop, and their second driver was just not as fast as their first driver, and Tom and Jasper reeled them in, and we got past them, and it was looking good for the win. As it turned out, had we won, we'd have wrapped up the championship as well, but I'd picked up a track limits warning. I think Tom picked up one as well, and or Jasper picked up 2. But either way, in the final 5 minutes, I was like, look, we are going really great guns. I was going to be picking up the trophy as well. I was looking forward to getting one of the massive cups. Like, these are just second places here. The winners of the cups, they were huge, and I was looking forward to it. And then I looked at my phone, looked at Alpha Timing, and saw that the Free Swans had a black flag. And what's even worse about it was that the black flag happened. Jasper came out. He was still in front of Brilio, but because there's no timing loop in the pit lane, we lost a lap and finished second. And it was just one of them. You can see in the photos on Club 100 just how ecstatic I am with getting second place there. So that was just one of those moments that, again, just have to take on the chin and be like, that was shit. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's just move on. And move on we shall to number 3. The second SP60 race at Clay Pigeon. Now, as I mentioned in my season review, I came into Clay Pigeon having sort of given it a bit of the big uns on the channel, having ruffled a few feathers, and in need of putting my money where my mouth was. The endurance had gone brilliantly, but the SP60 did not. And I had a couple of bad races this year, but this one just stood out for the fact that I took out a guy, and also took out a cone in the process, and got 7 places worth of penalties. And then going on to the last lap, I defended unnecessarily against a heavyweight, and ultimately got taken out, finished very low down, and was lucky to get a podium. It was just not fun. Like, especially having had to be up at 5 o'clock and then having to drive back to going to Clay and back in the same day. I just remember getting into the car thinking this was meant to be a brilliant start to the year, and it actually, and like, the morning went brilliantly, but the afternoons left a really sour taste. It was just not fun. It was just not. I was just really unhappy with myself. And yeah, of the bad races I had this year, and I'll talk about this, the other two in a second. The Clay one really stood out. So yeah, that's why it finds itself at number 3. Number 2, the entire LO experience. Now, the reason I say the entire LO experience is because it wasn't just my stint or what happened in my part of the endurance race. I was only doing the endurance race for LO, and this feeds into it. I'll come on to that as I tell this story. So I'd taken the Friday off from work. Me and my girlfriend were going to be staying in Ipswich that day, because we thought, you know what, LO's quite far away from where I live. Let's get up there. Let's book a Premier Inn. We had a lovely time in the Premier Inn the last time we stayed there for a kart race. Let's do that again. Have a decent night, and then go off and do some karting in the morning, and hopefully try and snag an SP60 drive as well. The drive from Sevenoaks, where I live, to Ipswich took about double the time it should have done. I reckon I could have got to Swansea in the time it took me to get to Ipswich, which was only meant to be an hour away. Thank you, the QE2. And as we're coming into Ipswich, my girlfriend says, I can feel a headache coming on. And ultimately she became quite ill, or was just in a lot of discomfort, and our plans for the Friday night just blew up in smoke. We were meant to go to Pizza Express. Like, she couldn't even bring herself to we couldn't leave the hotel, sort of thing. We ended up having a meal in the Premier Inn, and let me tell you, a meal in the Premier Inn, it was rubbish, and that Premier Inn was absolutely crap as well. We decided to try and make up for it by getting we got a dessert on Deliveroo. And I went down to go get it. The Deliveroo driver got lost. He had not read my instructions to say we're in the Premier Inn. It was just, everything about the Friday was just an absolute nightmare. And I haven't even got into the racing side of things yet, because it was actually going quite well. Was the racing? We were leading. We were doing well. Jasper had made a brilliant shift. But because I wasn't in the SP60, I decided that I wanted to get the entire endurance race on camera. And this meant changing over batteries when Jasper came out and I got in. And that cost us 14 seconds because it didn't go swimmingly. Hadn't practiced it in practice like I'd hoped to. And then that time lost meant that I ended up stuck behind Lee Henderson for a lot longer than I'd wanted to. Lost a lot of time to who was it? It was J2D2, and the guy who's like the main J2D2 guy had drafted in this other chap who was on the pace of like the Titan guys. So I had a really good battle with him, but ultimately come the end of the race, he got past me, and he'd finished about 8 seconds in front of me. And had the GoPro thing not happened, had I not insisted upon getting the entire race filmed, we would have won that race, and ultimately again had to go home on a long journey with just a 2nd place trophy when it should have been a 1st. I really wanted to win at LO because my only other winner's trophy is from LO, and I wanted to come home, have a 2nd one to go along with that one. But ultimately it's just a 2nd place, and it was such a dead feeling. And whereas my girlfriend had thought she was feeling better in the morning, I remember going into the car saying, oh, how are you feeling? And she's like, I've got a headache. And it's like, oh God. So yeah, Ipswich is on our blacklist. We are never ever going back there, and I'm not overly. And well, actually, no, I'm keen on going back to Ello because it's a great track and there's a lot of redemption. But Ello in 2021 can fuck off as far as I'm concerned. So before we get into the number one worst moment of the year, let's have a look at a couple of honourable mentions. And I mentioned that there were a number of races on the year that were worthy of being included on the list, but the Clay SP60 race 2 beat them out. And those were the race 1 at Buckmore, where my kart had no top end, which was just so unsatisfying. There was also the multiple takeouts at Rye in race 2, where I could have finished in the top 10 that day in the SP60, but I got taken out twice and just lost a lot of positions, despite the fact my pace was so good. That was incredibly annoying. There was also then the 8 places worth of penalties I got at Bayford Meadows. Again, that was a race that it was just so stupid because I was behind all these heavyweight drivers, and I was saying to myself, I don't need to get involved in this, but if there's an opportunity to, I will. What ultimately happened was I fought way too hard, and it was just so annoying. It didn't need to happen, but I let it happen. And then there was basically the entire SP60 round at Lyd, where I was just not on it, and I didn't really deserve to come away with a podium. It was only because Richard Newton had a thigh injury that meant that I got a podium that day. I think everything just went wrong in the Lyd SP60, but the reason it's not on the list was because by that point it was fairly obvious that the championship was wrapped up at Clay. That it was like I was meant to get off to a great start and I didn't, so that was really annoying. And then the other thing to mention, in honourable mention wise, was the mechanical failure we had at the Rye Endurance, because we could have won that day had that not happened. Ultimately, we finished in 5th, so that was really annoying, but not annoying enough to get on to the list. So we've done number 5 to number 2, we've done the honourable mentions. Let's now have a look at number 1. The number 1 worst moment of the 2021 Club 100 season was losing out on the victory at Wilton Mill to fastest lap. Wilton is a curse for me in Club 100 SP60 terms. At my first SP60 ever, I was comfortably leading and then hit a stationary cart on the exit of Christmas. And then at my second one, I lost out on what should have been a victory, my first victory of the year. I lost out on it thanks to a couple of penalties and then ultimately fastest lap. There's more to it than just that though. On the very first lap, I took out my main championship rival and didn't get a penalty for it, which I possibly should have done. So that was a very guilty feeling, which I don't like feeling. I'm not one of those drivers. I would never ever intentionally take someone out of a race or try and take someone out of a race, and ultimately that's what happened with Richard. And I was basically like, yeah, I've got the victory, it's got it all wrapped up, but I hit 2 cones through the course of the race, picked up 2 penalties, and Richard had recovered well enough to be in a position to benefit from my penalties. He then finished 9th, I was 10th. In the first race, I was 9th, he was 10th. And it came down to fastest lap, and he'd set a lap time that was 1/10 faster than me, and he got the victory. And I just remember being sat in the car, having figured this out, whilst the lightweights were still going around, waiting for the podium ceremony, figuring this out, and just being like, oh my God, I've done it again. I've ruined it. And it was so depressing. I was so angry with myself, and I just couldn't enjoy the fact that I'd still taken home 2nd place. It was just not good. I was just really, really disappointed with myself, really angry with myself. And I remember when I decided that I was going to do a top 5 best and worst moments of the year, at the end of the year, I knew I was waiting for a moment to come along worse, that made me feel worse than this moment at Wilton did. And that never happened. So that's why it is my worst moment of the year. Even though I still picked up a 2nd place trophy, like that feeling, driving back from Wilton, waiting for the podium ceremony as well, it was just awful, and one that I really hope to never experience again. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those have been my top 5 worst moments of the Club 100 2021 season. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications so you know when more Rich T videos come out in 2022, because that now does officially wrap up the 2021 year for me on this channel. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And all I shall say for now is ta-ta and farewell.